Markings. Some people do them electively. Some people are born with them. Some people are given them by thousand-year-old aliens who want to take over their body. And then that's just the roll of the dice. Some people get to choose their markings, while others have them thrusted upon them by genocidal aliens. And thus markings have always played a pretty big role in Naruto, and now especially in Boruto. As in Naruto, sages would acquire new markings on their faces or other parts of their bodies whenever they enter their sage mode, as people like Naruto and Minato got orange circles on the outside of their eyes. Hashirama would grow green circles around his eyes and a green circle on his forehead with long streaking marks that run down the side of his face. And Jiraiya would kind of turn into a frog. But sage mode isn't the only way that we see markings manifest on people in Naruto, as pretty much the most prevalent way that we see markings manifest in Naruto outside of sage mode is the Byakugou seal. That is to say, the strength of 100 seal. This is a technique used by Tsunade and Sakura and possibly Mito Uzumaki that allows the user to store years worth of chakra in their forehead where the Byakugou seal exists that they're able to access in times of need. Now, this technique when manifested increases the strength and chakra pool of the person using it 100-fold, which is why it's called the strength of 100 seal. However, this chakra pool could also be used for other things, like increasing your mitotic regeneration to the point where you could be cut in half and regrow your legs. But there's one weird thing about the strength of 100 seal, and that's its shape. See, the strength of 100 seal exists as a diamond on the forehead of the person who's able to use the technique. And it's always a diamond. It was a diamond for Mito Uzumaki, it was a diamond for Tsunade, it's a diamond for Sakura. And while the color of the diamond does vary between Mito Uzumaki and then Tsunade and Sakura, as Tsunade and Sakura have a black diamond and Mito's is closer to purple. Actually, no, now that I'm looking at it, Sakura and Tsunade's is blue and Mito's is purple. The fact that the strength of 100 seal is a diamond raises a couple of questions amongst the Naruto and Boruto fandoms. See, because within the confines of Naruto, the marking being a diamond was fine because nothing else was a diamond. However, with Boruto and the introduction of the Karma marking on Boruto and Kawaki's palms, the incredibly logical question, why is the Karma marking in the Byakugou seal the exact same shape and size, began to get raised. And what's crazy is not even just by fans. See, obviously us as fans can look at Sakura's forehead and Boruto's palm and be like, those markings look similar. But usually the connections that we make aren't made in universe. However, these connections have been made in universe, because when Mitsuki and Sarada are trying to figure out more about the Karma seal to help their friend Boruto, they note that the marking on Sakura's forehead is eerily similar to that of a Karma marking, which causes Mitsuki and Sarada to question Sakura all about her strength of 100 seal. And if we're listening to that little voice in our head that tells us the tagline of this page that Kishimoto never does anything for nothing, the fact that this connection has been made in universe should raise a couple of eyebrows, which is why today we're asking the question, did Kaguya place a Karma marking on Sakura? I know it sounds like an absolutely out there, insane theory, but there's more evidence to this theory than even I dreamed imaginable. So sit back, relax, and draw on your diamonds, because today we're getting crazy with it. But before we get to speculating about Sakura being the vessel for the return of the queen herself, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And if you like the idea of me getting crazy with your favorite anime, then you're gonna love my other channel, The Weeb Commander, where instead of talking about Naruto and Boruto, I talk all other anime. And if you just love the idea of me getting crazy while talking about anime, then you're gonna love my anime podcast, Otaku's Anonymous, where me and Danny Mata break down everything that happened in anime this week. It's available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Or if you just wanna look like somebody who will get crazy about anime, guys, go ahead and meander on over into my merch store, otakusanonymous.net, where you can pick up some of the greatest anime sweatshirts, t-shirts, and sticker packs known to man. So, Kaguya, we haven't seen her in about 6.5 years, and yet it feels as though every couple of months somebody finds a new way to resuscitate her, to bring her back to Boruto's manga. Now, this is because Kaguya as a character could still have a lot of plot relevance in Boruto, as Kaguya was a lower-ranking Otsutsuki who tried to kill a higher-ranking Otsutsuki so that she could stop being used as food for her Ten-Tails to create a divine tree, and because she identified the potential strength that a chakra fruit from Earth could yield. Because she broke rank and attacked a higher-ranking Otsutsuki, the rest of the Otsutsuki, like Momoshiki, Kinshiki, and Ishiki, all now kind of have it out for her. And thus the history of Earth is incredibly tied into Kaguya's story, as Kaguya planned on building an army of white Zetsus to battle against the incoming waves of Otsutsuki. And really when it comes down to Otsutsuki, there's always gonna be intrigue. Not because they're murderous, genocidal, incredibly powerful aliens trying to wipe out basically all sentient life to make themselves stronger, but because everybody wants to know what would happen if two of them fought. In fact, one of the most hotly debated things in the entirety of the Naruto Naruto fandom is which of the Otsutsukis was truly the strongest. There seems to be a consensus that Kaguya was the weakness because she was defeated by Naruto and Sasuke in their weakest forms. Not like their weakest forms, but like the weakest forms we've seen battle against an Otsutsuki. There's also the fact that even after eating a chakra fruit, she still believed that she needed to build an army of white Setsu to battle against the likes of Momoshiki and Kinshiki. However, can we underestimate the one person who's ever eaten a chakra fruit from Earth, Kaguya, who wasn't killed by War Arc Naruto and Sasuke, but simply sealed, while adult Naruto and Sasuke absolutely beat the brakes off Momoshiki until he got saved by the scientist. And is Ishiki the strongest out of all of the Otsutsuki because he beat the brakes off of Naruto and Sasuke in possibly their strongest forms? Well, that leads a lot of people to arguing that Naruto and Sasuke were nerfed in the battle against Ishiki, which they weren't. I'm just saying what their arguments are. And thus we go around in this carousel of arguing who amongst the Otsutsuki is the strongest because they've never battled against each other, and the Otsutsuki have never been battled on equal terms by the same people outside of Momoshiki and Ishiki. However, by and large, the consensus is Kaguya comes in third place, Momoshiki comes in second, Ishiki comes in first, with Kinshiki probably somewhere around Kaguya's level, if not lower. Don't ask me about Oroshiki and Toneri. We're not talking about them today. But in the same way that the introduction of the Karma mark got people speculating that the Karma mark could be tied to the Byakuya seal, the Karma marking being introduced got people thinking about how Kaguya could be brought back to life. Because if Kaguya was a lower ranking Otsutsuki and she was heading to Earth with Ishiki to be thrown to a 10 tails and turned into a divine tree, that would mean that Kaguya would need a Karma marking to come back to life. And thus, when heading to Earth, Kaguya should have had a Karma vessel prepared. However, because Kaguya rips Ishiki in half and feeds his legs to the 10 tails to make a half of a divine tree, is at least what we believe happened, she doesn't technically die until Naruto and Boruto seal her in a new moon in her dimension. Yes, that's right, that second 6 Passage Shibuya Tensei used by Naruto and Sasuke killed Kaguya, is at least what has been confirmed to us through the means of the 4th data book. Now, as to whether or not you actually want to believe that Kaguya is dead, or if you just want to believe that she's sealed in a moon in a separate dimension, that's up to you. But if she is sealed, she can't be brought back unless the seal breaks. But if she's dead, she could be brought back through karmic revival. So for the sake of today's video, let's assume that she's dead, which means that technically as a lower ranking Otsutsuki, she should have a karmic vessel to reincarnate into. Now, many would argue that that karmic vessel was Black Zetsu, and thus since Black Zetsu was thrown into the same 6 Passage Shibuya Tensei as Kaguya, she can't reincarnate through Black Zetsu, and thus no more Kaguya. And this makes sense. I mean, Black Zetsu was the color of karmas, and as Black Zetsu was an amalgamation of Kaguya's will that enforced her will on Earth while Kaguya was sealed up in the moon, it's not crazy to assume that Black Zetsu was just a weird manifestation of a karma marking that Kaguya kept on her so that she could reincarnate the second that she died. And this would explain why Black Zetsu was trying to get Kaguya released from the moon for so long, as with Kaguya sealed and not dead, Black Zetsu would never be able to become Kaguya, which is a problem. But we know from Ishiki you can have 2 karma markings, as Ishiki simultaneously had a karma marking on Jigen and Kawaki. And in fact, we learned from Ishiki that you can have as many karma markings as you want. It's just when you choose to manifest through one karma marking, all your other karma markings disappear. Which is why when Ishiki manifests in Jigen's body, the karma marking on Kawaki disappears. And thus, it's not crazy for us to assume that Kaguya could also have 2 karma markings, one on Zetsu and one on Sakura. Because think about for 1 second how we've seen karma markings placed on people in Boruto. Obviously, the way the karma markings were placed on people in Ishiki's case was a bit more formulaic and scientific. In the case of Momoshiki and Boruto, the karma marking was placed on Boruto while Boruto was killing Momoshiki with a giant Rasengan. And thus, because in that moment, Momoshiki realized that Boruto would be a good vessel for him karmically, and because Boruto is the last person to come into contact with him, dealing a fatal blow, Momoshiki, while he's dying, is able to place a karma marking on Boruto's palm. Sakura's situation with Kaguya is eerily similar, as Sakura, just like Boruto, is the last person to land a strike on Kaguya, as right before Kaguya is sealed with the sun and moon seals closing in on her, Sakura comes from above her and punches her down into the seals. Now you can make the argument that Naruto and Sasuke are the last people to touch Kaguya in this equation, and technically you would be right. However, if we think for a second about the placement of the sun and moon seals, it's a possibility that the sun and the moon seal actually act as counters to the karma, and as in a way, the sun and moon seals were kind of like Naruto and Sasuke having Hagoromo's karma markings. That is to say, by having the sun and moon seals, they were able to manifest a part of Hagoromo's power, which is exactly what a karma marking is. And thus, because in this instance, Naruto and Sasuke were already marked, the only person that had come into contact with Kaguya at the moment of her death, assuming that the Sixth Path Shubaku Tensei kills her, was Sakura. And the craziest thing about all of this is that Sakura already has a pyramid-shaped mark on her body, and thus it's a possibility that while Kaguya is dying at the hands of Sakura, that she places a karma marking under Sakura's Byakuya seal, thus hiding the karma mark placed on Sakura to one day bring Kaguya back to life. Because, think about it, the karma markings could have been anything. They could have been circles, they could have been whirlpools, they could have been stars, they could have been squares, but they're diamonds. Exactly like the strength of 100 seals diamond. And Sakura was the person to land the final blow against Kaguya, which we know is grounds for being marked with a karma marking. And since Black Zetsu was thrown into the Sixth Path Shubaku Tensei by Naruto, he is no longer a vessel to reincarnate Kaguya. As more likely than not, Black Zetsu is also dead. Not to mention, we as fans are not the only people who have made the connection between the strength of 100 seal and the karma marking, as Sarada and Mitsuki have already had a conversation with Sakura about their likenesses. And prior to them having this conversation about their likenesses, Mitsuki revealed that his parent, Orochimaru, had done some research into the strength of 100 seal because of the strength it granted Tsunade and Sakura, and had figured out that the strength of 100 seal's history predates almost all of ninjadom. In fact, Mitsuki says that Orochimaru identified the fact that the Byakuya seal comes from Hagoromo's era. More likely than not, it's an Otsutsuki-derived jutsu. Considering the fact that both the karma marking and the strength of 100 seal have two key abilities, one of which is a massive power-up through the means of tapping into a pool of chakra that is not your own, and the second of which is revival. Yeah, I understand I'm using revival in a slightly loose conceptual sense here, because the karma marking brings dead people back to life through the medium of a vessel, while the strength of 100 seal just keeps the alive alive. Both are jutsus that, when accessed, increase your strength multiple times over and keep you alive. Not to mention, both the karma marking and the strength of 100 seal spread symbols across your body, specifically black symbols. As well, the karma markings can oscillate between black, blue, and orange, and I guess white in Code's case. Ishiki, while manifesting his karma marking in Jigen, has black symbols, and we've seen in lesser manifested iterations of the karma marking in both Kawaki and Boruto, the symbols on their palms become bigger and more complex, but also black. Not to mention that the manifestation of karma markings on an individual basis are as individual as the individual manifesting them, as nobody, that being Code, Kawaki, Boruto, or Jigen, has the same karma markings when fully manifested. There is also some individuality between Tsunade and Sakura's manifestations of the strength of 100 seal, though Tsunade's manifestation is a bit inconsistent, and thus it's a possibility that the strength of 100 seal is actually a derived jutsu made by the earliest humans in Hagoromo to be a watered-down version of the karma marking. And considering the fact that watered-down karma markings are a thing that's happened multiple times throughout the history of Naruto, looking directly at you, Orochimaru, with your cursed seal, it's not crazy to assume that the earliest iterations of humans in Hagoromo also found a way to water down the ability of the karma marking. I mean, if Orochimaru can do it through the medium of his cursed seal, which operates exactly like a karma marking, then why couldn't Hagoromo? And since Orochimaru was able to trace back the strength of 100 seal to Hagoromo's era, which, mind you, is Kaguya's era, it's a possibility that Kaguya also knew about the strength of 100 seal. Thus, when she saw the strength of 100 seal on Sakura, she realized that she could place a karma marking below her strength of 100 seal. But if you do believe that Kaguya placed the strength of 100 seal on Sakura, it raises the logical question, why hasn't Kaguya reincarnated yet? And that is a really good question, because for all intents and purposes, everything we know about karma markings makes it seem as though a decade should be enough time for Kaguya to come back. In fact, it's been over a decade. It's almost been 2 decades, as it's been about 19 years since Kaguya was sealed in the 4th Great Shinobi World War. So why, over the course of almost 2 decades, has Kaguya not been able to reincarnate through the vessel of Sakura? Well, there's 2 possible answers. The first is that Kaguya actually didn't die in the second Sixth Path Shubaku Tensei. Listen, as somebody who absolutely loves the data books and the information that they provide, the data books did also call Choji's human tank bullet the most destructive offensive jutsu ever created. So unfortunately, when it comes to the data books, we have to take everything kind of with a grain of salt, and thus Kaguya would be able to remanifest in Sakura until she died. Now, I don't think if this theory was true, this would be the likely answer, because narratively, there would be no reason for Kaguya to put a karma marking on Sakura if Kaguya was never actually gonna die. I mean, obviously, down the line, there's a possibility that Sakura could manifest their karma marking and become relevant in the power sphere once again, but if there's no downstream repercussions in the form of Kaguya dying and possibly manifesting through the means of Sakura, then what are we talking about here? And it's not like if Kaguya isn't dead inside of the Sixth Path Shubaku Tensei, there's there's really any way for her to die. She's in a dimension that nobody knows how to get to inside of a moon. The only reason that we were able to bust her out of the moon in our dimension is because somebody pulled off Infinite Tsukiyomi. And unless Infinite Tsukiyomi works across dimensions and somebody's able to pull it off once again, actually wait. Now there's something there. It has nothing to do with this theory, but there's something there. Because Kashin Koji was worried about Boruto becoming a divine tree in the Car dimension, which is a separate dimension, which might, and I mean might, imply to us that the divine tree has the ability to affect separate dimensions, so long as the separate dimensions are close enough in Boruto's space-time. And considering the fact that Boruto, who's not all that good at flying Thunder God, was able to determine the toad that he put on Code's location, which was across a separate dimension, and immediately jump to it within a matter of seconds, it's safe to assume that while Car's dimension and Earth's dimension are not in the same dimension, those two dimensions are close to each other. And there is no dimension closer to Earth's dimension than the dimension that Kaguya is sealed in, because Kaguya was using Omanomanaka, which allows her to rip parts of other dimensions away from their dimension and bring them to her current location, which means all of the dimensions that Kaguya was ripping to her with Omanomanaka actually currently exist technically within Earth's space-time. So if hypothetically a divine tree was able to work across separate dimensions, it has the possibility of breaking Kaguya out of a moon. We got a whole nother video to film at some point. God, where was I? Oh yeah, there's no possible way for Kaguya to die while inside said moon, and thus there would be no threat of Sake ever turning into Kaguya. The second possibility is that we have a skewed idea of how long it takes for a karma marking to fully manifest. So we technically don't know how long it took Ishiki sitting on top of Jigen's brain to fully manifest a karma marking that Ishiki would be able to manifest through. All we know is that Jigen lived for thousands of years as Ishiki's vessel, and maybe the real reason that Ishiki never made his move until Boruto is because the manifestation of the karma marking took so long. I mean, think about it. Jigen's technically been around for the entirety of the Naruto universe. He descended down from the heavens with Kaguya and was torn asunder by her, which means the prologue of Naruto's history that we got about Kaguya, about her descending from the heavens and eating a chakra fruit and having children and then trying to kill those children. Yeah, Jigen was around for all of that. And while one can make the argument that he didn't make moves until Boruto because there was no other Otsutsukis to feed to a 10-tails to make a chakra fruit, it's not like he came out for Kaguya. Now, objectively, Kaguya was on Earth for like 7 minutes, so for him to pull up for that would have been kind of crazy. And in fact, she might have been on Earth for less than 7 minutes. The first thing that she does after manifesting through Madara is literally use Omanomanaka to take Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, Kakashi, and Obito to a different dimension. But people will say, yeah, well, we don't know how fast Ishiki and Jigen's karma marking manifested. We do know how fast Boruto and Kawaki's karma markings manifested, but you can't really use Boruto and Kawaki. So the reason that Boruto and Kawaki's karma markings manifested as fast as they did and made them both 100% Otsutsuki in the matter of months isn't because that's how fast the karma marking works, and is actually because of the karmic resonance between Kawaki and Boruto, as the close proximity between these two karma markings actually accelerated how fast Boruto and Kawaki Otsutsufied. But I know what you're saying. But Nick, Sakura's near Boruto and Kawaki. Not really. Boruto and Kawaki live with each other. They're best friends and brothers. Well, they were best friends and brothers, but they were best friends and brothers while their karma markings were turning them into Otsutsukis. Sakura doesn't live near them and is actually almost never seen in proximity to Boruto or Kawaki. And it's a possibility that that was done purposely. And in fact, pretty much the only time that Boruto ever meets Sakura is when he goes back in time and meets young Sakura. And Kawaki only ever meets Sakura once, and that's when she takes care of him when he's at the hospital. And now in Boruto 2 Blue Vortex that Sakura is the wife of a rogue ninja, it's a possibility she's not even in Konoha, and thus it's a real, genuine possibility that if Sakura does have a karma marking, it wouldn't have resonated with Kawaki and Boruto. There's also the possibility that the reason that Boruto and Kawaki are undergoing karmic resonance is because of the similarities between the two Otsutskis who gave them their karma markings and the similarities of them as people, as they're both young boys. And thus, in actuality, there's a possibility that the Uzumakis, thousands of years ago, were the first people to reverse engineer the karma marking, and what they created was the strength of 100 seal, as Mito was the first person ever canonically depicted to have the strength of 100 seal. And since the Uzumakis are direct descendants of Hagoromo through the means of Ashura, them being the creators of a jutsu from Hagoromo's era isn't crazy. And thus Kaguya, upon seeing this marking on Sakura, might have realized that Sakura, as somebody who was able to learn the strength of 100 seal, could be used as a karmic vessel. And thus, while Sakura was dealing the final blow as the only non-marked person in the battle against Kaguya, Kaguya placed a karma marking on her forehead. However, because this karma marking isn't resonating with Boruto and Kawaki's, Kaguya hasn't been able to 100% Otsutsufy Sakura. However, it's a possibility in the late stages of Boruto's manga, we will see Kaguya return to battle against the likes of Shibai. Or we'll see Sakura re-enter the fray as one of the most important and powerful people in Boruto's ever-evolving power sphere, as he joins the likes of Sarada and Boruto Naruto to save her husband. And I think Kishimoto would be a fool not to do this, considering the fact that he just ran a worldwide popularity contest for all of the characters to ever exist in Naruto, and Sakura got third. And the craziest thing about all of this, Sakura having a karma marking from Kaguya and therefore being at least partially Otsutsuki would explain why Sarada isn't affected by Ada's omnipotence. And it would explain it in a way that isn't just, oh, Sarada's got a crush on Boruto. So far as I'm concerned, this is canon. But what do you guys think? Do you believe this theory could be a possibility? Tell me in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, hit that noti bell.
Oh, Nick, this is just copium to try and make one of your favorite characters relevant again.
Yeah, it is, okay? Because I think she deserves more time in the spotlight. But this is also the exact argument that everybody makes for Sasuke and Naruto, so I'm a hypocrite. But you knew that already.